So you just bought a Miata and you want to know the first things that you should do with this car, modifications, maintenance, all of the big things to make your Miata the best Miata that it could be. Well, you've come to the right place because I've owned this car for about 2 years and I've done an incredible amount of research, videos, and been around these cars for quite some time, longer than that even. So I know just a little bit, and maybe some of you guys will learn some key things that you can do to your cars to make them a whole lot better. Now see, one of the key things that you need to consider when you're buying a Miata is the fact that this car came out 34 years ago. This is the very first model year of the Miata that I own. It is a 1990, and the car has 121,000 miles on it. Most cars are gonna have about that much or more and be just about as old as my Miata is. Now Miatas got cheap, and when cars get cheap, they get into hands of people who don't take care of them. The very first thing I would do if you have an older Miata is immediately flush out all of the fluids in the car. Especially if you don't have any records of what's been done to the car, the first thing I would do is change the oil so you have an idea of when the oil was changed last. And the second thing I would immediately do is flush the coolant system out of the car. Now with my Miata, we did a super flush on the car, meaning we ran distilled water through it a number of times in order to flush the system out, because distilled water is cheaper than coolant is. You're not going to be harming your system whatsoever, and you're going to be giving it a nice flush out, and that will make your system cool and last longer. Sometimes it might even be worth the money to just change out the radiator altogether. I'd also change out your differential fluid because most likely that has never been changed in your Miata before, the diff right between the two wheels. And also I would go ahead and change the transmission fluid, especially if you're not planning to do a clutch job anytime soon. I would go and just change the transmission fluid and get it out of the way. At the same time, I would do a brake flush and flush out the clutch system as well. Especially if your clutch is starting to feel spongy, I would change out the brake fluid in your clutch system, and that should make a pretty big difference. Now, those things are kind of standard for any car, really. Fix all the issues it has firstly, and change the fluids. I would change all the fluids since it's easy and you can do all of it yourself in probably under 2 hours. Getting your car kind of revived is a very big deal, especially when you have no idea what's been done to the car. I had literally no idea, no clue, the things that had been done, when the coolant was changed, when the oil was changed in my Miata, and the very first thing I had to do was do all of those things. The only thing I haven't done is change out my trans fluid because I need a clutch. But that brings me to point number 2, and the second biggest thing that you can do that is kind of a wear and maintenance item that not a lot of people think of. It has to be dealing with the shifter. If you want your shifter to be nice and crisp like mine is in the video, the big thing is not getting a short throw shifter, but changing the bushings inside of the shifter. You guys are seeing on screen how destroyed my bushings were after 120,000 miles. They're a massive wear item. A lot of people kind of overlook it, but if you're having a lot of slop in the shifter, you want a more crisp feel, instead of changing the shifter, change just the bushings because it will make a major difference. I also would attest that the short throw shifter is one of the best things I've done to my car, and it definitely makes an even bigger difference than just the bushings. But I would start with the bushings if you're on a budget. Now I hope for your sake you did your inspection properly and you bought a Miata that wasn't rusty, or too rusty I should say. All of these cars are going to have a little bit of rust and corrosion. They're going to trap moisture underneath the carpets, and they're going to have spots that rot out. If you haven't already, lift the carpet up, check for the rust spots under the carpet. If you don't have a whole lot of rust on your car, I would immediately, if you do have a little bit of rust starting out under there, get it cut out, get it replaced, because it should only be a couple $100s now, and well, later that could turn into thousands of dollars if you just let it keep growing and growing. Plus, who wants rust on their car? Nobody. Get it fixed. Miatas are insanely prone to rusting, and I would say the biggest issues that these cars have and these cars face is rust issues, because that is what kills them. I can't stress to you enough, I had a rusted Miata, my second car I bought. This is the first car I bought. That car is gone, but that car was savable. If I was the owner who bought the car from me, I would immediately go, if I was planning to keep it, and chop the rust out and get it all cleaned up, because he could have done it for maybe $500 to $600 to $700 with the condition that car was in, and he would have had a car that lasted him a long time. If you want to keep the car for a long time, fix the rust issues in the car. End of story. Moving on to the next major thing, and that has to do with the driving aspect of the car. One of the biggest modifications and safety features at the same time that you can do. Wheels and tires, ladies and gentlemen. Stock Miata wheels are extremely skinny, but also most of the tires that you're gonna get on your cars probably aren't gonna be the best unless a fellow enthusiast has owned it before. So what I would do, something that I would highly recommend, would be get yourself a nice set of wheels and tires. I'd go 1 inch bigger in diameter, and the width of the wheel, I would actually get quite a bit bigger and go all the way up to 6s, where I would actually recommend 7s or 8s in your car. Currently, I have the stock daisies on my Miata, but I have a set of NK RPF 1s that are 15 by 7 sitting inside my garage, waiting to be reinstalled on my car because I took them off because my alignment is very jacked up. I didn't want to ruin my Yokohama tires because, well, they were expensive, but they were definitely well worth it. One of the biggest changes I made to the car visually and while driving was putting different wheels and tires onto it. The tires that are on my daisies are very sketchy. I go drive this car in the rain and I'm drifting all over the place. Literally, not even trying to, I'm just all over the place. These are not good in the rain whatsoever. Now that boils down to more of tire choice than anything else that the previous owner put on this car, but just hitting the back roads and having fun with these cars, the biggest thing you can do for it is to put a nice set of wheels and tires on it because it looks better. Man, it rides and feels and handles and inspires so much more confidence with a little bit of meat on the tires. Now, while we're on this little drive, I want to mention the next thing. We talked about minor maintenance and upkeep with the cars, but also I would suggest that you start to look into some of the major services that the Miatas require. Luckily, these cars are very easy to maintain and keep on the road, and even the major services are fairly minor. There's no major engine out jobs or anything like that unless you have catastrophic failure. But one of the big things that these cars with this much mileage most likely need are clutches. If you're hearing your throw-up bearing or your clutch feels like it's slipping, I would start to look into clutch kits, start to decide how you want to do it, whether you want to do it yourself, save up the money to have someone do it, all of those different things. I'm planning to do my clutch myself. I'm just waiting for the clutch kits to come back into stock. But other major services include timing belt. When was your timing belt done on your Miata? Do you know if the timing belt is done on your Miata? Maybe it's time to look into it, because around 60,000 miles you should be doing a timing belt service. Realistically, if you're around 120,000 and you have no indication of it, I'd recommend you just replace it. Now, timing belt around 120 can be a pretty intensive job because I'd recommend you replace a lot of seals while you're there. I'd recommend you do multiple while you're there. You might as well do them type things like the seals and cam seals and all of those different things, and changing the belts, accessory belts, and everything like that. But also things that I'd mention are, water pumps, air conditioning, small things, water pump is an important one. Air conditioning isn't as important, but it is a nice comfort to have. I'd love to have air conditioning back into this car, but also it is a convertible, so it's not the end of the world, I suppose. But it also wouldn't be a horrible idea to change some of the sensors out, like the oil pressure sensors, because those like to go bad. They get extremely hot and they start to read wrong, like mine is reading very wrong. Some of those could be very, very labor intrusive jobs, and it's probably worth your time and worth your while to look into some of the major service items in these cars. I think the timing belt is a major one that's overlooked, but also the clutch hydraulic system, spark plugs, some of those are minor service items that I highly suggest that you get done. Now, this video was made directly for my Miata owners. For those of you who watch my videos and aren't Miata owners, well, I hope you learned something about the Miata. It's definitely a fun car, and if you don't own one, if you've ever been considering one, those are some things that you should know maybe before even looking for one, if it has some of those things as a major plus point. And if you've watched the video and you don't own a Miata and you're not planning to buy one, well, shout out to you. We'll get to some of the other fun stuff sitting in the garage soon. We're waiting for a bunch of parts for the RX-7 currently. It is very hard to get parts for the RX-7. While Miata, a lot of the parts are available, but I've been waiting 8 months for a clutch kit that hasn't shown up. That's all I have for the video. If you guys enjoyed, do me a huge favor, leave a like, subscribe to the channel as always, and well, I will see you guys in the next one, where we're probably going to get our hands a little bit dirty on a rotary.